And then,
Willie, I don't know you. Turn your mic on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Willie. Now you know me.
Are you from the Twin Cities?
Yeah, I've been up here since '71. So yeah.
Oh, God.
I do read introductions of all of you.
Excuse
So that'll
me.
give you a
Okay.
chance to know who they are.
So I should turn
All
off
right.
my
If you want to just mute yourself for now, and then we will, Ron will get started here.
Okay.
Countdown.
Right. We are going to go live. There we go. Take it away, Ron.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to tonight's live poetry reading featuring Willie Johnson, Diana Rajchel, Sandra Howlett, and Richard Broderick. As usual, I'm going to start with a couple of my poems. The first one is called "The Thaw Was Shortly Held." This was in my book Dog, which is still available on Amazon, by the way. And I wrote this a few years ago in one of those winters like this one where it was up and down. The thaw was shortly held. There was no need to shovel on that foggy day a week ago. Water was becoming apparent. It dripped from the gutter. It dripped in our hearts and souls, along with making an appearance in the front hallway, drops from our clothes. The ice spirit would spring back to our lives, and the wind blowing our breath weak would return the snow spirit. No sculptures this time, just places to slip. Where do these spirits come from? They ride in on the winds, almost seeing. You can't say you truly believe their presence to be more than a trick of the eye, but you don't deny. The dog jumps in the air as if to snap at them, then sticks her nose in the snow looking for what it was lost. She knows they don't perform their dances for us. This next poem is called "Many Don't Like the Truth." Many don't like the truth. It is the wrong sheep at the family gathering. Buying, the shearing is coming, the shearing is coming. It is the egg you don't dare crack, the one stuck in the carton, the omelet about to be ruined. It is words like waves wearing away the shoreline, waves crashing against one's self-esteem. Some don't want to be called mud, but when faced with their actions can live with caked with gravel. Yet, a few appreciate the truth, like a shadow standing by them, reflecting the work needed, reflecting what remains good. In spite of that, the advice in an adverse situation is to hold back that thought. Here, the truth may not be helpful. And then we go to our first reader, Willie James Johnson. Willie was born in Detroit, Michigan, and grew up on the south side of Chicago. He has written over 60 articles for various publications, including scholarly journals, newspapers, poetry anthologies, etc. Willie earned his BA in speech theater from Hamline University, MA in communication from the University of Minnesota, and PhD in educational policy and administration from the University of Minnesota. Since 1982, he's been a full-time tenured faculty member at Normandale Community College in Bloomington, Minnesota, where he teaches interpersonal communication, public speaking, intercultural communication, and human communication. Take it away, Willie.
Thank you, Ron. My first poem is called "My Daddy Worked in a Junkyard." I wish you could have known my daddy. You would have loved his quiet way, his inner strength, his slow smile. My daddy worked in the junkyard, not some metaphorical place symbolic of some other job. No, it was a real junkyard. My daddy got his hands dirty every day as he dug through mountains of regurgitated junk and garbage. My daddy transformed that wretched refuse of everybody's teeming shores into food, shelter, and clothing for our beleaguered family. My daddy worked in the junkyard, the bowels of the city where the flotsam and jetsam of sophisticated people came to die. But my daddy performed triage on that amalgamated debris, digging into it with his hands, holding his breath, lest he inhale sometimes toxic, lung-killing particulates, searching for treasures. He found them. He brought them home to me. Books, sometimes with missing covers or pages, my daddy wanted me to learn. An old rusty bicycle with unfashionable balloon tires in the days of sleek and shiny 10-speed racers with razor-thin wheels. My daddy wanted me to go places. A pair of old roller skates with worn and frayed leather uppers and lopsided wooden wheels. My daddy wanted me to soar. It was junk, precious, transcendent junk, mightily wrested from messy piles and gingerly cleaned by my daddy's strong, tired, naked hands, salvaged so that I would be lifted high, carried to another world. I wish you could have known my daddy. I ache to remember how much he loved me and I him. I wish I could have worked in the junkyard too, so I could have given you so many treasures that would have lifted you high and taken you to another world. I wish you could have known my daddy. He worked in the junkyard. My second poem is Woodlake Laundromat. It's about a real laundromat that used to be on the corner of 65th and Lindale in Richfield, Minnesota. I held my overflowing hamper of dirty clothes as I stood before the locked doors of Woodlake Laundromat. Mouth agape in wonder, I stared at the small hand-scribbled sign taped to the inside of the glass door, quietly proclaiming, "Closed forever." So there it was. After 4 decades of swishy, sudsy service, Woodlake Laundromat was closed, cerrado, defunct. No more aging, struggling washing machines taking only $1.25 of my hard-earned money to cleanse my well-worn clothes. No more creaking, groaning, squeaking washing machines, sometimes too tired to complete the full spin cycle, leaving it to me to hand-wring the rest of the water from my clothes. It was only a $1.25 gamble, so I did not mind. Sometimes one of the old machines quietly leaked sudsy water from its bottom, sending me into a small two-stepping bunny hop to escape a little bubbly gray pond gathering around my shoes. In my sometimes soggy tennis shoes, I relished throwing my clean, fresh-smelling, wet clothes into the gaping maw of the gargantuan dryers. Feeding the big sleeping beast $1 caused it to slowly grind into action until it was catapulted into a full-speed circular motion, sending my clothes into a powerful pattern of centrifugal force, all the while breathing its dragon-like breath that chased the moisture in my clothes out into the air. No more random conversations with fellow customers, whiling away our time by talking about our lives, our families, our jobs, the weather. No more keeping company with the occasional homeless person who wandered in to talk, but mostly to ask if I had any spare change, which I willingly gave, knowing that many of us are only a few missed paychecks away from traveling the city streets with our nomadic brethren. I miss the old Woodlake Laundromat, but times move on and waits for no one or nothing. Now I wash my clothes at a clean, modern, digitally controlled laundromat in a part of the city where the customers seldom talk with each other and no homeless people ever wander in. Now I wash and dry 2 loads of my well-worn clothes for $9 instead of $4.50. But we must have clean clothes, mustn't we? More than just missing the old Woodlake Laundromat, I miss how much it reminded me of me. And I know there will come a time when a small hand-scribbled sign will be taped to me proclaiming, "Closed forever." The next poem is Something Took Hold of My Music. I played my guitar and I sang the song. My music sailed out smoothly through my mouth and circled back into my ears, and it crawled into my skin and found its way into my soul. Then the sad melody vibrated throughout my melancholy mind and streamed out mournfully from my body through the salty tears that ran down my face. My tired fingers plucked and strummed the freshly tuned strings determinately, and the strings sprang to life and they danced together, creating resonant chords that ran in tandem along the sound waves beside the somber tones of my voice. My guitar and me melded together and took flight on the reverberating echo of my music. And for a moment, somewhere, somehow, a seam in time opened up and I saw something. I don't know what I saw, but it tried to pull all of my hurt, all of the disappointment, all of the loneliness out of me. It took hold of my music and it overwhelmed me, so much so that I felt that I would evaporate into the ether. Before I strummed the last chord of the song, before I sang the last word of the song, it was gone. And my sad song continued to echo inside my melancholy mind and ooze mournfully out of my tired body through the bitter, salty tears that ran down my clouded face. And for my last selection, it's called Waving My Daughter Forward. This is right before the pandemic hit. We were in San Diego, California on her spring break, and I was trying to keep up with her and not so successfully, but it's called Waving My Daughter Forward. Spring forward, daughter. Lunge as far as you can. Charge ahead with exuberance. I am here, a few steps behind you, struggling to keep up. I am here if you stumble and fall backward. I trail behind you, daughter, taking the place that you once held when you were trying to keep up with me. I see you far ahead, stopping for a moment, looking back at me, tilting your head, checking to see if I'm okay. It warms my heart. One day, somewhere along the road, I will be too far behind you. Then I will lovingly wave you on and watch you until you are out of sight. Spring forward, daughter. Lunge forward with exuberance. Charge ahead and go as far as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Very well done. Our next poet is Sandra Howlett. Sandra began writing poems at an early age, calling them songs. It was in her 40s at her first poetry class that she found a name and a structure for her incessant scribblings, poetry. She has a degree and worked in journalism for several years and now volunteers for Life Giving Wounds, a ministry helping adult children of divorce to heal. She lives with her husband, Mark, in Minnesota and has 3 adult sons. Christian, a seminarian, Morgan, a musical director, and Micah, an opera-trained vocalist. Take it away, Sandra.
Thank you all for listening in tonight, and thank you, Ron Palmer, for organizing this. This collection of poems is largely about the pain of divorce from a child's perspective. They are somewhat historical, but I've changed some of the facts for dramatic effect. I want to dedicate these poems to life-giving wounds, for all those who suffer from depression, and for my father. Broken open. The room rocked violently. My sisters argued over who was shaking the bed, and my dad crawled in on his hands and knees, which had always been a mystery to me. Shortly after, my parents' marriage ended, which left me cracked and fractured like the San Andreas Fault, as if my whole world had shifted off its frame that day, deep chasms running through every relationship, every job, every endeavor. And me trying to stay on my feet, running for cover while everything collapsed around me. It would take another 20 years and another large earthquake to help me understand why he had been on his knees that day, and just as long to figure out how to get off mine. I searched for sturdy ground, but like the earth, I couldn't hold firm. Quakes turning earth to waves, plates shifting and sliding. At times, my fractured life has settled, creating new formations until the next quake comes along. It is inevitable, this shifting and settling, the earth and I constantly searching for solid ground. Death of innocence. I knew from an early age that you'd never survive in this cruel world, your eyes open wide, at first in awe and then in desperation, thinking your strong gaze would somehow shed light on the haziness of events, the death of innocence, and losing your dad to those radical 70s fad of partner swapping and free love that cost you so much. And when the pain became part of your sexual games played on a stage of indifference to punish yourself for his leaving, you relived this dying again and again, as if it was the only thing that made sense anymore. This next poem is partially about skinny dipping. What can I say? I was a child of the 70s. Skinny dipping. The water washes over me, a balm to calm my troubled soul, a baptism of sorts in this salty sea that calls me to its depths. I jump joyfully over the whitewash as if to greet an old friend, dive under the waves and surface with a splash, gasping from the sudden chill, smiling at the freedom. I arc into the water over and over, pretending to be a dolphin until it gets too deep. I swim out farther to where the quiet sets in and people on the shore become stick figures. Then I slip off my suit, hold it in my hand and kick, letting the cool water flow over my newly freed body. This is ecstasy. The consuming need for freedom and absolution, satisfied by this ritual, intensified by the fear of losing my bikini. But once again, I succeed. And as I adjust my suit and step out of the surf, I smile at my secret deed before joining the sunburnt masses. Bois Sauvage, inspired by an oil painting by Mary Jo Vandell. The darkness feels heavy, as if it could crush me with one swift brush of its hand, pinning me down, pressing on my lungs so that I have to think about my breathing or it will not come. Sometimes I'm like the dark pines piercing the light, tall and jagged like daggers. I want to stay in the darkness, suffering, suffocating, but somehow safe. Other times, my spindly branches, tired of bracing from the pain, reach out to the light high above the dark, dank forest, looking for salvation, hope, a new perspective from above, like a god or an eagle on the hunt. This next poem is about summiting Mount Shasta, a 14,000 feet peak in Northern California. Warriors. When life gets claustrophobic, we head to the hills to breathe, to humble ourselves beneath huge monoliths, giants in gray armor. But climbing their steely flanks, legs and lungs burning from exertion, we are warriors, if only for a day. With helmets, axes, ropes, and poles, we push our bodies to the limits, demanding the impossible from muscles silenced by momentum, voicing their complaints only when we stop. Soon we will retreat to our boxes, gasping for air, but the memory remains. We were warriors, and the thought of this brings life into each new day. Archaeology of the mind. Brushing away the layers of long buried memories to get down to the hurt the way an archaeologist brushes through dirt, finding bones broken, missing, frozen in time, sifting, stirring up feelings and memories I'd rather not disrupt, those ghosts of adolescence. Soon, they will be reassembled, the pieces puzzled together to resemble a human being. searching for forgiveness. I forgive the sun not shining, the moon's midnight arising. I forgive the thunder ringing. Why can't I forgive you? I forgive the wind's bitter bite, the geese, their winter flight. I forgive my fingers, their frostbite. How can I forgive you? I forgive the years laid wasting, my heart always hesitating. I forgive my body aching. What if I forgave you? Divorce. I nursed my hurt on the bottle of abandonment, sated myself with anger and indifference to not being loved. I vowed to love you less than you loved me, though this provided no relief. For 40 years, I stewed in my toxic brew, high on pride, tallying every slight, until one day, a silent query, a new and challenging thought. What if you've always loved me? What if you never stopped? My new healed self reached out to love anew, and you were there, and you were always there. This next poem was written about a month before my dad died. The sun never sets. The sun never sets if you keep heading west, I think, hopefully, although I know it will set for my dad. That's why I'm flying there now. I look down on the massive Rockies and they are a speck from up here. The view from the heavens makes the bedlam below seem insignificant. The topo map on the back of the seat of mountains and rivers and ravines with branches fanning out looks like an X-ray. Lungs and capillaries, dark and light spots, green and brown. Mysterious and dangerous bacteria invading his body. I want to keep outrunning the setting sun of this night and of his life, but the plane and his stamina are slowing, the darkness growing. It is inevitable. I can't run from reality, and the tears flow like the waters I see below flying into Salt Lake City. In the end, there's nothing we can do to stop the march of time. Not money, nor privilege, nor love, nor technology will stop it. The big wheels of life keep turning, fed by our mortality. Even Jesus died before he was resurrected. The resurrection of the body is what comforts me now. The image of Dad healed and whole again, free of death and disease and discomfort, restored in his glory. And this last one, Father. I wanted to forget you for leaving me once when I was young and again at your passing. My love for you complicated by pain. It worked for a while. I didn't depend on your love or comfort or advice. So I told myself it wouldn't be devastating losing you. You weren't my go-to person. Fear of judgment prevented that. Self-reliance was your fatherly mantra, so that a crisis found me floundering. No safety net, and yet the more time goes, the more you come into my mind. The little things, household objects, seemingly infused with you won't let me forget. The garden shears in the leather pouch, the green spatula, and the sleek red car, things of beauty and utility. And the beauty of life lived as an adventure, even in the mundane tasks of clipping, cooking, driving. I honor you every time I bow before a budding flower, seek horizons unknown and cherish those I love. I hold you now in my heart, broken as it is, and feel your arms embrace me across space and time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Hope you keep writing poetry. Very nice. Our next reader is Diana Rachel. Diana specializes in nonfiction, especially focused on aspects of the occult. To polish her prose so that it shines and dazzles with her unique voice and view, she turns to the instructive practice of poetry. She is the author of 5 titles on witchcraft and the occult, and even after 20 years, considers herself a mere student of quatrains and stanzas. While she currently splits her time between San Francisco and Kalamazoo, she considers Minneapolis her beloved hometown. Take it away, Deanna.
I think that covers it. So my first 2 are from 2012 and 2013, and they're short and fairly self-explanatory. And then, well, my concerns changed later in life. The first one is titled Suspicious. If there must be only one God, that God is the great scientist that lost their notes. Platypi and silly humans, kinetic motion in cotton candy machines, Ebola and foolish pride, and the greatest injustice of all, good fortune. Assholes that pull through, nice people that don't. It is all one grand experiment on a big, wet planet, suspiciously shaped like a hamster wheel. All right. Next one is titled Gravity. The weight of expectation sags in pockets of my body, bearing me down until belly, bouncing off knees, reaches the soil. Oh, how lowly all this gravity makes me. Okay, this next one takes a little explanation. Is I have a very good friend who is a death doula, and it's a tough job. And she was having an especially difficult day with dealing with people's projected expectations. So I was thinking about what she was dealing with, and something a friend of mine had said to me years ago, that you are a strong woman in a world where women's strength is not always appreciated. And it made me think about her. So I wrote a love poem to my friend because she needed it. We're a pretty pair, you and I, me walking the earth, you tunneling below. We have this dance of life and death worked out, though I frequently Roomba when you're trying to lead a waltz. I bear my scythe, my heavy armor, cut things down and pull them up from the ground, the kind of things lesser men find hard to bear. You carry the weight of the earth, glory in the loam, cut new paths, new places in even the hardest rock. We may love it, but for both of us, it's pressure. These other beings, these stars and planets and satellites wonder at us. You and prescribed covered head, delivering the dying down, me wild hair unbraided as assigned, bringing them back up. It takes muscle what we do. Full submission is just as hard as its refusal. Someday the mortals will learn that that's what they really love in us. And then this last one is from 2019. And I was going through some stuff back then and visiting a lot of cities. For those that are familiar with my work, one of my titles is Urban Magic, a Guide for the City Witch. And I interact with cities as animistic spirits and sometimes receive things from them. And while I was in New Orleans, I think she kind of took pity on me and channeled a poem to me one day. So, New Orleans. Love poem to DR, August 2019. Pieces of me dropped like dusty pennies from the Garden District to the French Quarter. The years barely readable in street smudge. 2001, 2005, 2014, 2016. I am ridden by spirit as she shows me. You left yourself here. That napkin, that gutter, this little bit of you washed up in the last storm. And sweet girl, this crossroads is all yours. Look down this alley, the one where your foot caught in that pothole, you rolled straight back up to your feet. Grace of an elephant, you. Because I love you, baby, here you are. These things your lovers took from you, the bones not all clean, good place to start a seed, little death, mini Shiva. Stepping over beads to dance the last of your chaos. Have yourself back, baby girl. Now you're all raw and white, bare bones means free of bullshit. Marrow is still in there when you're ready to remember who you are. You just come my way when you want to throw up in your arms, smack some jackass with your ulna. You might be stripped skeletal, but you still walk nice in those shoes. All right, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Diana, so much for sharing. I really especially like the New Orleans poem. I think your personality shone through in all the poems you read, which is a nice talent in writing. Our final poet is Richard Broderick. Richard is an author of 3 books of poetry, 1 collection of fiction, and 2 nonfiction books on biology and the Buddhist nature of Thailand's culture and its monarchy structure. He is a teacher, impresario of multimedia reviews and readings of poetry and prose of all kinds. He is the recipient of 2 awards from the Minnesota State Art Board, Iowa Review, and the University of Wisconsin, among others. Take it away, Richard.
Thank you. Before I begin, it was just wonderful hearing the other poems. And it's really a lift at this point to come here and hear these kinds of things. I'm going to read a few poems from a book that I have been working on. It's pretty much done, called Farewell to Icarus. Icarus was the son of Daedalus, who figured out a way to connect things, and Icarus decided to build himself a pair of wings and fly across the strait from the island to Greece, and in the process got too close to the sun, and the sun melted the wax in his wings, and he died. He drowned. This poem is it's actually books of poems, not separate poems, but a series of poems. It's dedicated to my brother Michael, who was definitely sort of a Icarus type, and it has a preface from W.H. Auden called "About Suffering, They Were Never Wrong, the Old Masters," which was his picture of his comment on the painting of the falling of Icarus into the sea. What was the one word you spoke before you ever could truly speak? Flight? Yelled gleefully with every leap, like the time you turned just 3 and you jumped over a stool, lost your balance, and came down on your neck, cracking 3 vertebrae. Were they hollow then, or did that come later? For 6 months, you had to wear a brace of metal and leather to hold your head still, a foretaste of the harness you used to strap wings to your shoulders. And as for me, your quieter, earthbound brother, I'd lie on the floor, drawing upright spirals with a pencil, hour after hour, a break everyone thought from penmanship lessons I never mastered, but in fact, a secret storyboard of dancing funnel clouds growing darker and coming closer until they fell from the sky and touched the earth, stick-figure humans clinging before them. And maybe that's why I'd come behind you on rainy days, lying on your back in that same back room, staring at the blaze of the ceiling fan spinning overhead, feeling yourself being drawn upward, ever upward, finally taking flight, unruly, drunk, holding forth, looking lost. Why fear change, you ask me? Why yearn for everything to remain the same? There's the key to your pain, to everyone's. He spread his arms as if to take flight. You see, he explained. His sweeping gesture made me look away. All of this is nothing but a dance. Stop trying to solve the mysteries. Learn instead to love mystery. Join me in the dance. Oh, brother, I cried. Oh, Icarus. Oh, demon I didn't know is blossoming inside my soul. Please stay. But with that, I heard his laughter echoing in some celestial chamber. With a sound like the fluttering of wings, my waking dream came to an end when I opened my eyes, and there you were again, gone. I have to keep reminding myself our destinies are not the same. I am still here, though my light's diminished by your dying. This is the great burden of survival. Treading an endless path through the underworld, never knowing when or if I'll ever glimpse the sky again, the clouds finally clearing. But you, brother, you found your resting place in a realm where there is no weight, no urgent need for flight. You are home now, on your own but not alone. Your fellow shades drawn to you instinctively, their awe as they gather beneath your wings, the never-ending applause of waves breaking on a beach, a lotus blossom, inverted crown, feathered nest where you can reign forever. It may be I am too literal to tell the complex truth of your story. I never walked the labyrinthian back streets of your dreams, the cities spiraling upward into the light. You were your own daybreak, your own storm, islands drifting in and out of sight behind the fog. You saw the human pack animals bent beneath the weight on their bare shoulders, and only you saw the stolen wings stacked in the armory, wings stolen from us, a race conquered in childhood by the demand for order. And only you tried to restore them. First things first, one set of wings and one heart and soul at a time, launched into the Imperium. From the moment you stepped from that cliff, flew, then fell, the world has looked flat to me. Nothing but the sea and what land it has abandoned is not worth the effort, the muddy womb from which you are pro-race sprung. What's it about, this life? The story that ends but keeps on spinning endlessly. I sleep but get no rest, awaken only to sleepwalk through the day. Sometimes at night, I look out over the wall of the rooftop terrace toward the center of our city and see the tops of towers and buildings awash with light floating in the sky. And I think, yes, if you, brother, are anywhere right now, it's in some place like these phantom abodes, luminous heavens conjured out of dreams and resting atop illusions, disappearing again and again in the morning light. You said you were cold, so I took your hand in mine. You said your heart was pounding, so I placed my ear against your chest. I cupped your other hand over my ear and heard the surf rise and fall, rise and fall. You called my name, and then I finally saw you were floating just beneath the surface of the bay. But when I plunged my arms into the water, I could not, brother, could not rescue you from my dream. Have you found comfort? Peace of mind in the other world? It comforts me to believe you have. Or are you disturbed, unable to find rest, a brewing storm that could trouble the waters even over here on the far banks of the river Styx? That night, Mother and I woke you to tell you that Daedalus was no more. They had taken one hoarse breath, sighed, then gently subsided into death. Oh, how you howled. How you tore at the bedclothes, crying out, that's what you were told could not be true. We were lying. Surely it was all a bad dream. And then, exhausted, falling back on the tangled sheets, you prayed to be allowed to go back to sleep and never wake again. Yet only a day later, how stolid you were at the viewing, stopping as the mourners filed past what had been your father to touch his face, as if seeking out the invisible wounds that must have killed him. After that day, you rarely spoke of him again, and when you did, it was with a smile, relating some humorous anecdote about something he said or did when you were a little boy. We didn't know then what we know now. All those ensuing years, you were simply waiting for the right time for you to climb to the top of a towering summit that overlooked a funeral pyre of whitecaps dancing across a bright blue lake, where you could toss yourself into the air like a sacrificial dove whose feathers had been clipped, and then plunge into the cold but all-consuming flames of the sea. Brother, step again to the edge of that seaside cliff. Spread your homemade wings. Put sunrise at your back. See, your story flies, though your shadow falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for sharing such heartfelt poems. Thank you all for watching tonight. Thank the poets who joined in. I'll leave you with a poem by Sarah Teasdale called The Crystal Gazer. I shall gather myself into myself again. I shall take my scattered selves and make them one, fusing them into a polished crystal ball, where I can see the moon and the flashing sun. I shall sit like a sibyl, hour after hour, intent, watching the future come and the present go, and the little shifting pictures of people rushing in restless self-importance to and fro. Once again, thank you, everybody, and thanks to all the poets for joining in.
And thanks to everybody. It was wonderful to hear everybody's poems. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet all of you.
Yes,
You
you
too.
too.
Yeah, nice to catch up with you again.
Yeah, and to see you again.
Yeah. Remember what we all look like.